Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap-up. Alright guys, so March was actually a really good reading month for me. I read 11 books in total, which is pretty much my norm. 3 of these were in the same series. It's a young adult fantasy series that I'll get into. Then I had 2 DNFs. I read 1 thriller, a couple of historical fictions, and then 1 contemporary. So I had a pretty diverse reading month. So before we jump into the list, if you don't know yet, I post new videos every Tuesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, can you please like and subscribe to my channel? And if you want to be alerted to whenever I post new bookish content, hit that notification button. And with that being said, let's get into the list. All right, I'm going to start with my least favorite books, the books that I actually DNF'd. And the first one is Girl A by Abigail Dean. And this book I've actually already talked about in a vlog, and I wasn't a fan of it. The writing style was not my thing. The timing and the pacing kind of goes back and forth between timelines, and it felt a little bit jarring. It is a very tragic story. It is this girl who grew up in a very abusive household, and her siblings have now grown into adults, and they come back to the house that they grew up in. So it has a lot of trauma, but for me, it was really just the writing style. I just couldn't get over that you'd be reading and then you'd suddenly jump back in time, but like it wasn't happening every chapter. It was like in the middle of paragraphs, and I was not a fan of it. I might go back and reread it, but wasn't really for me. And then the second one I actually read on my Kindle, and that is Flames of Chaos. I will have the picture and the author put somewhere on the screen. But this one it was the writing. I couldn't get over the writing. It was just, I also said this in another vlog, which I'll link in the cards, but it was like if you read Throne of Glass, Selena Sardothian, if she was like super over-sexualized, like every other sentence she's like cursing, or is just, I don't know. And I'm fine with cursing. It was just, I think I found it on like if you enjoyed From Blood and Ash, read this website. And I picked it up, and the premise is interesting. It's like these witches that are looking for their sister, and there's a bunch of like different paranormal creatures. Honestly, I only got like 3 chapters in, and I was like, I can't deal with this. And there's like this dark and brooding like main love interest, but he's also like terrible, and he like the way he thinks about the main love interest is like so like crude, and it was not good. And I will link, I did this also in the vlog. I keep referencing this vlog. There was a Goodreads review, and it's very long, but it is perfect. And it just describes this book so well. So I suggest if you want to check out that Goodreads review, I will link it in the description. But yeah, those are the 2 books I DNF'd for March. All right, next up is a book that I didn't love, but it was entertaining, and I did read it in one sitting, and that is The Push by Ashley Audrain, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. And this book is traumatic. Like, I read this, I'm doing a video where I compare it to Baby Teeth, because it is very similar if you've read Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage, I believe is the author's name. But it follows this mother who has a child and doesn't really connect with her child. And then you don't really know if it's the mother's perception of her daughter or if there really is something amiss with her daughter. And it is so unsettling. And the entire time I was reading this, I was like, I hate this book, but yet I kept reading, if that makes sense. And it is a book that will stay with me for a very long time, because I've tried to forget certain aspects of this book, and it's very, very hard to. And it's just like so, I don't have children, but I just can't imagine like being a mother and like reading this book. It's very traumatic. So just be warned of that. However, like I said, I read it in one sitting, so obviously some part of me enjoyed it, but I don't know. Would I recommend this to people? Probably not, unless they're really looking for like an eerie domestic type thriller. Next up is a fantasy book that I really enjoyed, and that is Girl, Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust. This was awesome. I really enjoyed this so much. It follows a main character who is put into a tower not put into a tower, but she's kind of hidden away by her family because she has the power to kill people upon touching them. So her touch is poisonous, and she lives a very isolated life because she can't go out and her family's pretty much afraid if she touches someone, she's going to kill them. And then it feels very much like a old school fairy tale. So she meets a soldier who she thinks might be able to help her break this curse. She also meets a div or a demon, and together, without giving away spoilers, the story unfolds from there. I'm trying to keep this totally spoiler free. But it was so good, and I love this book. And I wish more people read this book because I feel like I don't hear it talked about very often, and it's really, really good. Like, I would definitely give it a shot if you like fantasy books, and it's very Persian inspired. There's an author's note that like kind of describes like all of the influences, and it was just a very unique and enjoyable story. So I hope more people check it out. And now we're going to talk about the fantasy series I read, and that was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. As many of you know, there is a TV show coming out based on the series, and I have not read the series. Now I have read all of Shadow and Bone and even started Six of Crows. So Shadow and Bone, I did enjoy it a lot, and I will be filming a review as soon as I'm done this video of my thoughts on Shadow and Bone, so you can definitely check that out. It'll probably be posted a week after this one. The world building I loved. I loved the Grisha, the world. It has like a Russian setting. All of that was great. The characters I could care less about. Did not have any connection to any of the characters. The main character, like, I liked her, but honestly, it was kind of a mess. I don't know. It might have been also a little bit to do with the writing style. Did I enjoy it while I was reading it? Yes. Will I reread the series? I might. Like, I liked it enough to get like the special edition version of it. And I have a really cool Ravka sweatshirt that I'm obsessed with. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It felt like very young YA. I think I would, I don't know. I don't even know if I would tell people to read this. I think if you're like in like high school, you'd probably enjoy this a little bit more. I'm not saying that if you're older, like you wouldn't enjoy this. Like I did enjoy it while I was reading it. It just felt like younger YA. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But I am really looking forward to the show. I think it's going to be really good. So we will see. Next up, I reread one of my favorite fantasy books of last year, and that is Fireborne by Rosaria Munda. I actually don't know if this came out last year. I just read it last year, but I really enjoyed it, and I reread this in preparation for Flamefall, which just came out a couple weeks ago. I think like 2 weeks ago now. I'm actually about halfway done this, but I didn't finish it by the end of March, so it doesn't count for this wrap-up. But this book is so good, especially if you really like political fantasy. It feels like almost like historical fiction, but like throw some dragons in there. So it follows Annie and Leo, and Leo is the son of the old rulers. It was very like Tsar Russia-like, and his family was kind of perceived as evil, and there's a revolution, and he's put into an orphanage, and there he meets Annie, whose parents were pretty much killed by Leigh's parents. So they don't ever, I don't think, tell each other that, but it's kind of figured out as they grow up. And then Leo and Annie both end up being part of this dragon riding, they're kind of like soldiers almost. They're like one of the higher like tiers of society. And they're kind of, oh my gosh, I'm having a lot of trouble with words today, guys. They're competing to be like the top ranking soldier and dragon rider. So it's really cool, and it's full of like politics and just like scheming, and also like how these characters deal with what's going on is just, it's just written so well. Like you feel their trauma and you feel their anxiety, and they're teenagers, but like, I don't know, it's written really, really well, and it's a really good book. So please, if you're into that kind of thing, I will say there's not a ton of action. I think when people hear dragons, they think a lot more like high fantasy. This very much feels like a historical fiction story, just throw some dragons in there. So be warned about that, but definitely give it a chance if you like historical fiction. Next up, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite books I read this month, and it was so, so good, and that is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Oh my gosh, this book it broke me. It was just like, it was so sad, but so good. But it follows this story of this town that is just obsessed with ice hockey, and they pretty much use it. They're hoping that this ice hockey team is going to help like boost their economy, because there is a really good, I think it's the Junior League and the A team. They're both like really, really good in this town. So everyone in this town really cares about ice hockey and is very invested in it. And then one day there's a party and a girl is assaulted by one of the players. And it's pretty much how everyone in the town reacts to this. And I will say there are a lot of characters in this book, but they are all so well developed and like well crafted, and like you can just tell. I don't know how he was able to have so many different perspectives and everyone just feel like a full character. Fredrik Backman just did like such a good job of that, and I loved this story. I actually bought, there's apparently a sequel, which I was really nervous to read because I loved this one, Beartown, like so much, and I was afraid that I wasn't gonna like the sequel as much. And so far, the sequel is just as good. So could not recommend more. Please, if you like contemporaries, give this one a shot. It's probably gonna be my favorite book I've read. It's gonna go down in like top books of 2021. It was so good. And next up, we have another tearjerker, and that is The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. This was a very enjoyable read. I will say I think I like The Nightingale a little bit better by her. However, this is a very close second. It was very good. I had no idea what this book was about going into it, so it actually follows this woman and her family during the Dust Bowl and how she has to move across the country to California in order to survive and take care of her family. And I just didn't know very much about the Dust Bowl going into this. Like, I had heard of it, but I just didn't know how absolutely terrible it was and like what these families had to go through. And it was great. And it was just the main character, just so much like female empowerment. And I don't know how she was able to do the things she did. And she was just so strong. And it was really good. I mean, once again, I don't think Kristin Hannah can like write a bad book. I think everything I've ever written by her has been amazing. But yeah, definitely check out The Four Winds. It was really sad, but good read. And the last book I read this month was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. And I have a full review that I will link in the cards and in the description down below. But I DNF'd this book when I first tried to read it, and then everyone on BookTube loved it, like loved this book so much, and I just could not get into it at first. So then I like forced myself, I was like, I'm gonna get through this, and like halfway through, holy cow, it was so good. It just got so good, and I loved the characters, I loved the magic system. It is a lot to keep track of in the beginning. I feel like it does have a little bit of an info dump where it just throws a lot at you. There's like different levels of, it's based on the Arthurian legend for those of you who don't know, not on the Arthurian legend. It's like a dark academia. This girl goes to a early college, and there she kind of gets involved in a secret society that is based on the Arthurian legend, and there's like Merlins and different like levels, there's pages and all this stuff, and she kind of has to go through these trials. And while all of this is going on, she's also trying to figure out what happened to her mother. Her mother died in a car accident, and she's trying to kind of deal with the trauma of her mother's death, but also like, is there something else behind it? So I found it so good. I can't wait for the next one. The one thing I didn't like about this book that I feel like everyone does like, I don't like the love triangle, and I actually do like the love triangle trope. But I feel like in this one, it was just like you have Selwyn, who's like this brooding bad guy, and then you have Nick, I think his name's Nick, who's just like this like glorified, like really good guy, and it was just a little too cliche, I guess. I don't know. I don't love the romance in this. But besides the romance, everything else is really, really good. So definitely, if you want a good YA fantasy, check out Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video and listening to all the books I read in March. If you have read any of these books, or are there any books that you think I should check out, please let me know in the comments down below. I said this earlier, but once again, I post new videos every Tuesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next week. Bye!